For 3,000 years, the Galactic Council believed they understood humanity's place in the universe. Humans were the galaxy's janitors, miners, and laborers, useful for their stubborn persistence and ability to survive in hostile environments, but utterly unremarkable when it came to warfare or technology. The Council's records showed that Earth had never produced a single vessel larger than a frigate, never developed weapons beyond basic plasma cannons, and never once challenged the established order. They were wrong. What the Council didn't know was that humanity had been listening. For decades, human engineers disguised as maintenance workers had been studying alien technology in the shipyards of a dozen different species. Human scientists, dismissed as simple researchers, had been quietly mapping every weakness in Galactic Council defenses. And deep in the asteroid fields beyond Earth's solar system, where no alien sensors could detect them, humanity had been building something that would change everything. The galaxy was about to discover that the species they had underestimated for millennia possessed something far more dangerous than superior technology or overwhelming firepower. Humanity had something that no other species in the galaxy understood: the ability to hold a grudge for generations, and the patience to plan the perfect moment for revenge. That moment had finally arrived. The maintenance bay of Kepler Station hummed with the familiar sounds of alien machinery. Marcus Chen wiped his hands on his coveralls as he finished installing the new power coupling, making sure to leave just enough of a signature in the work to satisfy the Takari overseer's inspection. To any observer, he was simply another human technician doing another routine job, one of thousands scattered across the galaxy's industrial stations. Marcus had been playing this role for 8 years now, and he had perfected the art of appearing competent but unremarkable. The Takari, like most species in the Galactic Council, saw humans as reliable workers but nothing more. They were useful for their willingness to work in dangerous environments and their surprising resilience, but the aliens never suspected that some of those workers might be gathering intelligence. The Overseer, a beetle-like creature named Zex Tal, approached on its 6 spindly legs. Its compound eyes examined Marcus's work with the methodical precision that made the Takari excellent engineers but terrible at seeing the bigger picture. Marcus had learned to read their body language over the years, and he could tell that Zehextal was satisfied with the installation. "Adequate work, Human Chen," Jektal clicked in its translated voice. "The power coupling meets specifications. Report to Bay 7 for your next assignment." Marcus nodded respectfully and gathered his tools. As he walked through the station's corridors, he passed dozens of other species going about their daily business. Tall, elegant Valorians with their blue-tinged skin and superior attitudes, stocky Gornish traders arguing over shipping contracts. A group of ethereal scientists floating past in their environmental suits, their gaseous forms barely visible through the transparent material. None of them paid any attention to the human maintenance worker. That had always been humanity's greatest advantage in this galaxy, Marcus reflected. They were so thoroughly dismissed that they had become invisible. The Council species saw humans as a novelty at best, a useful tool at worst, but never as a potential threat. That perception was about to change dramatically. As Marcus entered Bay 7, he spotted 2 familiar faces among the work crew. Sarah Kin was calibrating a sensor array, her movements precise and professional. To the casual observer, she was just another human technician. In reality, she was one of Earth's most skilled intelligence analysts, and she had been mapping Takari defense systems for the past 3 years. The other familiar face belonged to James Rodriguez, who was supposedly a simple welder, but was actually a former Earth Navy demolitions expert. The 3 of them had been working together for months, slowly gathering the intelligence that would soon prove invaluable to humanity's plans. Sarah caught Marcus's eye and gave an almost imperceptible nod. It was the signal they had been waiting for. The data collection phase was complete, and it was time to move to the next stage of their mission. The rest of their shift passed without incident. Marcus completed his assigned tasks, maintained his cover, and counted down the hours until he could return to his quarters. When his shift finally ended, he made his way through the station's residential section, past the segregated human quarters that the Council had deemed appropriate for their species. The quarters were small and utilitarian, designed to house workers rather than residents. The Council's message was clear. Humans were temporary guests in this galaxy, useful for labor but not worthy of true citizenship or respect. That attitude had shaped humanity's experience among the stars for 3 generations now. Marcus entered his quarters and activated the privacy screen, a simple device that would prevent electronic surveillance. Then he opened a hidden compartment in his wall and pulled out a communication device that looked like a standard datapad but contained encryption technology that was decades ahead of anything the Council suspected humans possessed. He composed a brief message using a code that had been developed by Earth's intelligence services. To anyone intercepting it, the message would appear to be a routine report about station maintenance schedules. But to the recipients on Earth, it would convey something much more significant: the final piece of intelligence needed for Operation Prometheus. The message was simple: blueprints acquired, all systems mapped, ready for implementation. Marcus transmitted the message through a chain of human workers spread across the galaxy, each one adding their own layer of encryption and misdirection. The message would take weeks to reach Earth through conventional channels, but that timeline had been accounted for in the operations planning. Meanwhile, on the other side of the galaxy, similar messages were being sent by other human intelligence teams. From the manufacturing worlds of the Rim to the political centers of the core, humans who had spent years in positions of seeming servitude were finally revealing the true purpose of their work. Commander Sarah Chen received the compiled intelligence reports in her office aboard Lunar Station, hidden on the dark side of Earth's moon where alien sensors couldn't detect it. Sarah was Marcus's sister, though they had not seen each other in person for over a decade. Both had volunteered for long-term deep cover assignments when the Prometheus project had begun. The reports painted a comprehensive picture of Galactic Council capabilities, weaknesses, and blind spots. More importantly, they confirmed what Earth's strategists had suspected. The Council's military strength was based largely on their technological superiority and their assumption that no species would dare challenge them directly. That assumption was about to be tested. Sarah stood and walked to the observation deck of Lunar Station, looking out at the massive construction project that filled the hidden crater below. For the past 15 years, humanity had been building in secret, using resources mined from asteroids and techniques learned from decades of working in alien shipyards. The ship taking shape in the construction bay was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. It was massive, larger than any Council warship, but that wasn't its most impressive feature. What made the ship truly remarkable was the technology it contained. Technology that combined human ingenuity with secrets learned from every major species in the galaxy. The ship's hull incorporated Valorian energy shielding, but improved with human engineering to be more efficient and durable. Its weapon systems used Gornish particle beams enhanced, with Tarkari targeting computers and human-designed power systems. Even its life support systems were a hybrid creation, combining the best features of multiple alien technologies with human innovations. But the ship's most important feature was something that no alien species would understand, until it was too late. Human warfare doctrine was fundamentally different from anything practiced in the galaxy. Where alien species relied on superior technology and overwhelming force, humans had learned to be cunning, patient, and ruthlessly practical. The ship below wasn't just a weapon, it was a statement. It was humanity's declaration that they were done being dismissed, done being underestimated, and done being treated as second-class citizens in their own galaxy. Sarah activated her communication system and began transmitting orders to human cells across the galaxy. The orders were simple, but momentous. It was time to come home. After decades of gathering intelligence and learning alien secrets, Earth's scattered agents were finally being recalled. The recall wouldn't happen all at once, of course. That would be too suspicious. Instead, human workers would begin requesting transfers, citing family emergencies or health issues. Some would simply disappear during routine supply runs or station transfers. Others would fake accidents or deaths to cover their departure. To the alien species of the Galactic Council, it would appear to be nothing more than typical human unpredictability. They had never bothered to track human personnel movements very carefully, since humans were considered insignificant. That oversight would prove to be costly. As Sarah watched the construction crews working on the ship below, she allowed herself a moment of satisfaction. The project had taken longer than anyone had hoped, and it had required sacrifices from thousands of human families. Children had grown up without their parents, spouses had been separated for years, and an entire generation had lived with the knowledge that they were preparing for a war that might never come. But it had been worth it. Every year of patience, every sacrifice, every moment of being dismissed and underestimated had led to this point. Humanity was finally ready to take its place among the stars, not as servants or workers, but as equals. The ship's construction was nearly complete. In a few months, it would be ready for its maiden voyage. And when that day came, the galaxy would discover that the species they had ignored for so long possessed something that no amount of superior technology could overcome: the determination to never give up, and the intelligence to turn their enemies' own strengths against them. Sarah looked up at the stars visible through the crater's opening and smiled. The Galactic Council thought they knew everything about humanity. They were about to learn how wrong they were. In the coming days, the recall messages would reach human agents across the galaxy. One by one, Earth's scattered children would begin their journey home, carrying with them the knowledge and skills they had gained from years of patient observation. They would return to a world that was no longer the backwater planet the Council remembered, but the center of a growing resistance that had been building strength for decades. The age of human submission was ending. The age of human resurgence was about to begin. And at the center of it all was a ship that would soon earn a name that would echo through the galaxy: Terra's Vengeance, humanity's first star destroyer, and the weapon that would change everything. Admiral Elena Vasquez stood in the command center of Luna Station, watching as the final external plating was installed on humanity's greatest achievement. The ship had grown from a collection of sketches and stolen blueprints into something magnificent and terrifying. At 3 kilometers in length, Terra's Vengeance dwarfed any vessel in the human fleet, and it incorporated technology that had taken decades to acquire and perfect. Elena had been chosen to command the ship not just for her tactical brilliance, but for her unique background. She had spent 12 years working as a liaison officer with various council species, officially helping coordinate human labor assignments, but actually studying alien military doctrine and ship design. She knew how council fleets operated, how they thought, and most importantly, how they could be defeated. The assembly bay's main doors opened, and Elena watched as the last group of returning agents arrived on Luna Station. Among them was Dr. Michael Torres, who had spent 8 years working in Valorian research facilities, learning the secrets of their energy manipulation technology. Standing beside him was Lieutenant Commander Anna Kozlov, who had served on Gornish warships as a technical advisor, while secretly mapping their defensive capabilities. These returning agents represented the culmination of Operation Prometheus, humanity's long-term intelligence-gathering mission. Each one had risked their life to acquire the knowledge that had made Terra's vengeance possible. Now they would help crew the ship that would put that knowledge to use. Elena made her way to the briefing room, where the returning agents were being debriefed. The room was filled with men and women who looked older than their years, marked by the stress of maintaining deep cover identities for so long. But there was also something else in their faces, a quiet pride and anticipation. They knew what they had helped create. "Welcome home," Elena said as she entered the room. "I know this moment has been a long time coming. Your sacrifices have made this day possible." Dr. Torres stepped forward. He had always been one of the more thoughtful agents, careful and methodical in his approach. "Admiral, the Valoronians have no idea what we've accomplished. Their energy shield technology was considered impossible to replicate, but our engineers have not only copied it, they've improved it. The shields on Terra's Vengeance are 30% more efficient than anything in the Valorian fleet." Lieutenant Commander Kozlov nodded in agreement. The Gornish particle beam technology was equally challenging, but we've successfully integrated it with human targeting systems. Our weapons will have both the power of Gornish engineering and the precision of human design. Elena smiled. "And that's just the beginning. Show me what else we've accomplished." The next several hours were spent in detailed briefings as each returning agent shared their intelligence. The picture that emerged was both encouraging and sobering. The Galactic Council was powerful, with fleets that numbered in the thousands and technology that had been refined over centuries. But they were also complacent, overconfident, and divided. The Council's greatest weakness was their assumption that no single species could challenge their collective might. Each member species contributed their strengths to the Council's military, but they had never faced an enemy that had studied all of those strengths and learned to counter them. Agent Maria Santos had spent 6 years working in Council military logistics. Her intelligence revealed that Council fleets were heavily dependent on centralized supply chains and complex coordination protocols. If those systems could be disrupted, even the most powerful Council fleet could be rendered ineffective. Agent David Park had worked as a communications technician on Council command ships. His knowledge of their communication protocols and encryption systems would allow Terra's Vengeance to intercept and decode enemy transmissions in real time during combat. Perhaps most importantly, Agent Lisa Wu had worked in the Council's strategic planning division. She had access to their military doctrine, their battle plans, and their assessments of potential threats. According to her intelligence, humanity didn't even appear on the Council's threat assessment reports. They were still considered too primitive and too few in number to pose any real danger. That oversight would prove to be fatal. Elena concluded the briefings and made her way to the ship's construction bay. Terra's Vengeance was nearly complete now, its hull gleaming under the assembly lights. The ship's design was distinctly human in its approach, practical, efficient, and built to survive. Where alien ships often prioritized either overwhelming firepower or impenetrable defense, Terra's Vengeance was designed to be adaptable. The ship's modular construction allowed it to be reconfigured for different mission types. Its weapons systems could be adjusted for either precision strikes or area bombardment. Its defensive systems could be optimized for different types of enemy weapons. Most importantly, its human crew could adapt their tactics in real time, based on changing battlefield conditions. Chief Engineer Rodriguez greeted Elena as she toured the ship's interior. Rodriguez had been one of the few humans to remain on Earth throughout Operation Prometheus, overseeing the construction project and integrating the stolen technologies into a cohesive whole. "Admiral, she's ready for her first test flight," Rodriguez reported. "All systems are operational, and the crew has completed their training simulations. The ship performs even better than our models predicted." Elena nodded as they warped through the ship's corridors. The interior was designed for efficiency rather than comfort, with wide passages that allowed for rapid movement during combat situations and redundant systems that would keep the ship operational even after taking significant damage. They stopped at the ship's primary weapons control center, where banks of sophisticated computers managed targeting systems that combined alien precision with human adaptability. The weapons themselves were a hybrid creation, Gornish particle beams enhanced with Takari focusing crystals and powered by human-designed fusion reactors that were more efficient than anything the Council had developed. "The beautiful thing about studying everyone else's technology," Rodriguez explained, "is that we got to cherry-pick the best features and combine them in ways that no one else has thought of." The Gornish never considered using Takari crystals with their particle beams because the two species barely communicate with each other. The Valorians never thought to combine their shield technology with human reactor designs because they assumed we didn't have anything to contribute. Elena smiled at that. The galaxy's prejudices against humanity had been one of their greatest advantages during the intelligence gathering phase. Now those same prejudices would work against the Council in combat. They continued their tour to the ship's command center, which would serve as Elena's headquarters during combat operations. The bridge was designed around human psychology and decision-making patterns, with information displays and control systems positioned to maximize the crew's effectiveness during high-stress situations. But the command center's most impressive feature was its strategic analysis system, which incorporated intelligence about every major Council species. The system could predict enemy tactics, identify weaknesses in their formation, and recommend countermeasures in real time during battle. "How long until we're ready for active deployment?" Elena asked. "The ship could launch tomorrow if necessary," Rodriguez replied. "But I'd recommend another 2 weeks of testing and crew training. This is our first Star Destroyer, and we want to make sure everything works perfectly when we reveal it to the galaxy." Elena agreed. They would have only one chance to make a first impression, and that impression needed to demonstrate that humanity was no longer the galaxy's servants, but its newest major power. As they completed the tour, Elena's communication device signaled an incoming priority message. The message was from Earth's intelligence network, and its contents were both expected and concerning. Council fleets were beginning to mobilize in response to reports of human workers disappearing from various installations across the galaxy. The Council didn't understand what was happening yet, but they were starting to investigate. Some species were beginning to wonder if the human disappearances were related to some kind of coordinated effort. A few had even suggested that humanity might be planning something significant. Those suggestions were being dismissed by most Council leaders, of course. The idea that humans could organize any kind of large-scale operation was considered absurd by species that had spent generations thinking of them as simple laborers. But Admiral Elena knew that time was running short. Soon the Council would connect the dots and realize that humanity had been playing a much deeper game than anyone suspected. When that happened, humanity would need to be ready to act decisively. Elena made her way back to Lunar Station's command center and activated the secure communication system that connected her to Earth's military leadership. The message she sent was brief but significant. Terra's Vengeance was ready for deployment, and it was time to move to the next phase of their plan. The response came back within hours. Earth's leaders had been monitoring the situation across the galaxy, and they agreed that the window of opportunity was closing. Humanity had achieved strategic surprise, but that advantage wouldn't last much longer. The orders were clear. Terra's Vengeance would launch within the week on its first mission. That mission would serve multiple purposes. It would test the ship's capabilities in actual combat, it would demonstrate humanity's new technological capabilities to the galaxy, and it would begin the process of establishing humanity as a major power rather than a servant species. Elena called a meeting of her senior officers to begin mission planning. The target they had chosen was perfect for their purposes: a Takari patrol squadron that was investigating human disappearances in the Outer Rim territories. The squadron consisted of 6 ships, including a heavy cruiser that represented some of the most advanced technology in the Council fleet. More importantly, the patrol squadron was operating in an isolated region where a battle could take place without immediate Council reinforcement. If everything went according to plan, Terra's vengeance would engage and defeat the entire squadron before any distress calls could reach Council command. The battle would announce humanity's emergence as a military power, but it would also serve a deeper strategic purpose. The defeat of a Tarkari squadron would send shockwaves through the Council, forcing them to re-evaluate their assumptions about human capabilities and beginning the process that would eventually lead to humanity's acceptance as an equal power. As Elena and her officers planned the mission details, she couldn't help but think about the broader implications of what they were about to do. For 3 generations, humanity had accepted its role as the galaxy's laborers and servants. They had been grateful for the opportunity to work among the stars, even if it meant accepting second-class status. But that era was ending. In a few days, Terra's vengeance would launch on its maiden voyage, and when it returned, the galaxy would know that humanity could no longer be ignored or dismissed. The species that had been underestimated for so long was about to demonstrate that they possessed something more dangerous than superior technology or overwhelming numbers: the determination to never accept defeat, and the intelligence to turn their enemies' strengths against them. The age of human submission was over. The age of human power was about to begin. Captain Thexkar of the Tarkari patrol ship Methodical Precision felt a familiar sense of superiority as his squadron moved through the Outer Rim territories. The 6 ships under his command represented the peak of Tarkari engineering, each one capable of destroying entire human colonies with minimal effort. His mission to investigate the recent disappearances of human workers was routine, almost boring. Humans were predictable creatures, and their occasional attempts at organization rarely amounted to anything significant. The bridge of Methodical Precision hummed with the efficient sounds of Tarkari technology. Every system was perfectly calibrated. Every crew member performed their duties with mechanical precision. This was how the galaxy should operate, Thexkar reflected. Order, efficiency, and proper respect for superior species. "Captain," reported his sensor operator, "we are detecting a large energy signature approaching from the asteroid field in grid 749. Thexkar's compound eyes focused on the main display. Large energy signatures usually indicated mining operations or cargo haulers, both of which were common in this region. Classification: unknown, Captain. The signature is much larger than standard human vessels, but the design is not in our database." That was interesting. Thexkar had been patrolling these territories for 12 standard years, and he thought he knew every type of ship that operated in this region. "Put it on screen." The main display activated, showing a view of the asteroid field where the unknown ship was emerging. What Thexkar saw made him pause. The vessel was massive, easily 3 times the size of his heavy cruiser, with a design that seemed to incorporate elements from multiple species. The whole configuration was unfamiliar, but there were recognizable components: Valorian energy emitters, Gornish weapon ports, and what appeared to be advanced Thakari sensor arrays. "Captain," his communications officer reported, "the vessel is hailing us. Open the channel." The face that appeared on his screen was human, but there was something different about this one. Most humans Thexkar had encountered were deferential, eager to please their alien supervisors. This human looked directly into the camera with calm confidence, showing no signs of the submissive behavior that had characterized human interactions with Council species for generations. "I am Admiral Elena Vasquez, of the Earth vessel Terra's Vengeance," the human said. "You are trespassing in territories that Earth now claims as sovereign space. I am ordering your squadron to withdraw immediately." Thexkar's thorax clicked with what his species used to express amusement. "Human, you are clearly confused about your place in this galaxy. This region is under Council jurisdiction, and I am conducting authorized patrol operations. You will stand down and prepare to be boarded for inspection." The human's expression didn't change. "Captain Thexkar, you have 30 seconds to begin withdrawal from this region. This is your only warning." The audacity was stunning. A single human vessel, no matter how large, was challenging a Tarkari patrol squadron. Thexkar had dealt with human rebellions before, and they always ended the same way, with the humans retreating or being destroyed. "All ships, battle formation," Thexkar commanded. "Prepare to disable the human vessel. We will take their ship intact and interrogate the crew to determine how they acquired alien technology." The Tarkari squadron moved with practiced precision, their 6 ships taking positions that would allow them to bring overwhelming firepower to bear on the human vessel while minimizing the risk of return fire. It was a standard council formation, refined through centuries of combat against primitive species. What happened next defied everything Thexgar thought he knew about human capabilities. Terra's vengeance didn't retreat or attempt to negotiate. Instead, the massive ship began moving with the grace and speed that should have been impossible for something of its size. More importantly, its weapons systems activated, and Thexgar's sensors immediately identified technology that shouldn't exist on a human vessel. "Captain!" His sensor operator called out in alarm. The human ship is equipped with Gornish particle beams, Valorian energy shields, and Takari targeting systems. Before Thexgar could fully process this information, Terra's vengeance opened fire. The first salvo targeted his squadron's lighter vessels, the escorts that provided point defense and reconnaissance capabilities. The human ship's weapons were devastatingly accurate, striking each escort at precisely the points where their shields were weakest. 3 ships were disabled in the opening moments of combat, their power systems overloaded by weapons that somehow knew exactly how to penetrate the Kari defenses. "How is this possible?" Thexgar demanded. "Our shield frequencies are classified information." His weapons officer was struggling to lock on to the human vessel. "Captain, their energy signature keeps shifting. Our targeting computers cannot establish a firing solution." Thexgar was beginning to understand that this was not a typical human rebellion. Someone had provided these humans with advanced technology and detailed intelligence about Council capabilities, but who would dare to arm a primitive species against the established order? Terra's vengeance continued its attack, and Thexgar watched in growing alarm as his remaining ships proved unable to effectively return fire. The human vessel was employing tactics that seemed designed specifically to counter Takari doctrine. Instead of engaging in the direct confrontation that Council species preferred, the humans were using hit-and-run attacks, electronic warfare, and precise strikes against critical systems. "Sir, they're jamming our communications," his signals officer reported. "I cannot reach Council command." That was when Thexgar realized the true sophistication of this attack. The humans weren't just trying to win this battle, they were ensuring that no word of it could reach Council authorities. Whatever was happening here, they wanted it to remain secret until they were ready to reveal themselves. The human vessel's next attack targeted methodical precision directly. Instead of the overwhelming barrage that Thexgar expected, the humans used surgical strikes against specific systems. His ship's weapons were disabled first, then his engines, and finally his life support systems began failing. But they weren't trying to destroy his ship, Thexgar realized. They were systematically disabling it while keeping the crew alive. The same pattern was being repeated across his squadron. The humans were taking prisoners, not just winning a battle. Admiral Vasquez's face reappeared on his communication screen. "Captain Thexgar, your squadron has been neutralized. Prepare to be boarded. Any attempt to resist will result in the destruction of your ships." Thexgar looked around his bridge at the disabled systems and frightened crew members. In less than 10 minutes, the most advanced patrol squadron in the Takari fleet had been systematically dismantled by a single human vessel. It was impossible, but it had happened. "How?" he asked simply. The human admiral's expression was calm but not without sympathy. "For 50 years, Captain, your species and others in the Council have used humans as workers and technicians. You allowed us into your shipyards, your research facilities, and your military installations because you never considered that we might be learning from you. You taught us everything we needed to know to build ships like this one." The implications hit Thexgar like a physical blow. The humans hadn't stolen this technology. They had been given access to it through their work assignments. Generations of human workers have been quietly studying, learning, and preparing for this moment. "You have been planning this for decades," he said. "Longer," Admiral Vasquez replied. "Today marks the end of human servitude and the beginning of human independence. Your ships will be returned to Council space with a message for your leaders. Earth is no longer available for exploitation. We are claiming our place as an equal power in this galaxy." Boarding shuttles from Terra's Vengeance docked with each disabled Takari vessel. The human boarding parties were efficient and professional, treating their prisoners with more respect than Thexgar had expected. They secured the ship's computer systems, downloaded intelligence data, and prepared the vessels for release. Within hours, the Takari crews found themselves back aboard their ships, which had been repaired just enough to reach Council space. Their weapons and communication systems remained disabled, but life support and engines were fully functional. Admiral Vasquez contacted them one final time before Terra's Vengeance departed. "Captain Thexgar, you will deliver a message to the Council. Earth hereby declares its independence from Council authority. We will no longer provide workers for your projects or resources for your industries. Any attempt to retaliate against human colonies will be met with force. She paused, and when she continued, her tone carried a warning that chilled Thekskar to his core. You have seen what one human ship can accomplish. Do not assume it is the only one we have built. Terra's Vengeance disappeared into the asteroid field, its stealth systems rendering it invisible to Tarkari sensors within minutes. Thekskar was left alone with his thoughts and the terrible knowledge of what he had witnessed. The humans had not just built a powerful warship, they had built it using technology stolen from every major species in the galaxy. More disturbing still, they had demonstrated tactical capabilities that suggested they understood Council military doctrine better than most Council officers. As his squadron began the long journey back to Council space, Thekskar composed his report. He knew that many Council leaders would dismiss his account as impossible or exaggerated. Humans were supposed to be simple, predictable, and grateful for the opportunity to serve their alien superiors. But Thekskar had seen the truth. The species that the galaxy had dismissed and exploited for generations had been quietly preparing for this moment. They had studied their master's strengths and weaknesses with the patience of a species that measured time in generations rather than years. The message that Admiral Vasquez had asked him to deliver was actually unnecessary. The destruction of his squadron would send a much clearer message than any diplomatic communication. Humanity was no longer willing to accept second-class status in the galaxy they had helped to build. When word of this battle reached the Council worlds, it would trigger a crisis that would reshape the entire galaxy. Some species would call for immediate retaliation against Earth. Others would question whether humanity might have other allies, other ships, and other plans that the Council knew nothing about. Most importantly, every species in the galaxy would have to confront an uncomfortable truth. They had created their own nemesis through decades of exploitation and dismissal. The humans who cleaned their ships and maintained their equipment had been learning everything they needed to know to build their own fleet. Thekskar looked out at the stars and wondered how many other human ships might be hiding in the darkness, waiting for the right moment to reveal themselves. The galaxy had underestimated humanity for the last time. The age of human servitude was over. The age of human power had begun. And judging by what he had witnessed today, that power was far greater than anyone had imagined. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in the Great Assembly Hall on Nexus Prime, the political heart of the galaxy. Representatives from 47 species filled the tiered seats, their various forms of communication creating a cacophony of sounds, lights, and chemical emissions that the translation systems struggled to process. At the center of it all stood Chancellor Veltar, a Valerian whose blue-tinged skin had taken on a darker hue that indicated deep concern. The cause of this emergency gathering was a report that most council members had initially dismissed as impossible. A single human vessel had defeated an entire Tarkari patrol squadron, using advanced technology that supposedly didn't exist in human space. The Tarkari delegation has presented evidence of this encounter, Chancellor Veltar announced, her melodious voice carrying clearly through the hall's acoustic systems. Captain Thekskar's report has been verified by our intelligence services. The human vessel designated Terra's Vengeance demonstrated capabilities that suggest significant technological advancement beyond our previous assessments. A ripple of unease passed through the assembly. Ambassador Krexnau of the Gornish Trade Federation activated his speaking platform, his stocky form rising above the other delegates.
With respect, Chancellor, we are discussing a single ship crewed by a species that has never shown any significant military capability.
Even if humans have acquired some alien technology through theft or trade, one vessel cannot threaten the established order. The Takari delegation's senior representative, Minister Jactel, responded immediately. Ambassador Krexnol, I suggest you review the tactical data from the engagement. The human vessel did not simply possess our technology. It combined technologies from multiple species in ways that our own engineers considered impossible. More disturbing, they demonstrated detailed knowledge of our defensive capabilities and military doctrine. Doctor. Selex of the Ethereal Collective floated forward in her environmental suit, her gaseous form shimmering with patterns that indicated analytical thought. The implications extend beyond military concerns. Our economic projections show that human labor accounts for approximately 18% of industrial output in the Outer Rim territories. If humanity withdraws that labor force, the economic disruption could affect multiple sectors. Ambassador Trendal of the Ashanti hierarchy, a tall humanoid species known for their aggressive tendencies, struck the floor with his ceremonial staff. We are discussing the rebellion of a servant species. The appropriate response is immediate and overwhelming retaliation. Dispatch a fleet to human space and remind them of their place in the galactic order. The hall erupted in debate as various species argued for different approaches. Some supported military action, others called for economic sanctions, and a few suggested diplomatic engagement. Through it all, Chancellor Veltar, maintained the careful neutrality that had made her successful in galactic politics. Admiral Kefron of the Council Defense Force requested permission to address the Assembly. As the military leader responsible for galactic security, his words carried significant weight. Chancellor, members of the Council, we have conducted a comprehensive analysis of the engagement between Takari forces and the human vessel. Our findings are concerning. The hall quieted as delegates focused on the military leader's briefing. Admiral Kefron activated the central holographic display, showing a tactical reconstruction of the battle. The human vessel Terra's Vengeance is approximately 3 kilometers in length, making it larger than any known human construction. Its weapon systems incorporate Gornish particle beam technology, enhanced with Takari targeting computers. Its defensive systems utilize Valorian energy shielding, with modifications that improve efficiency by approximately 30%. Murmurs of disbelief arose from the Valorian delegation. Their energy shielding was considered one of the most closely guarded secrets in the galaxy. More significantly, Admiral Kefron continued, the human crew demonstrated tactical knowledge that suggests they have studied our military doctrine extensively. They knew exactly where to target Takari vessels for maximum effectiveness. And they employed electronic warfare techniques that suggest access to our communication protocols. The implications were becoming clear to everyone in the Assembly. This wasn't just a case of humans acquiring advanced technology. It was evidence of a comprehensive intelligence operation that had been ongoing for years or possibly decades. Chancellor Veltar called for order as the debate intensified. Admiral, what is your assessment of the current threat level? If the humans possess only this single vessel, the immediate military threat is limited, Admiral Kefron replied carefully. However, if they have the capability to build one such ship, we must assume they can build others. More concerning is the possibility that they have allies among Council species who provided them with classified technology and intelligence. That suggestion sent shockwaves through the Assembly. The idea that established Council members might have secretly supported human rebellion challenged the fundamental assumptions about galactic politics. Ambassador Yethka of the Meridian Syndicate, a species known for their information networks, requested permission to speak. Chancellor, my government has been conducting its own investigation into recent human activities. Over the past 6 months, we have documented the disappearance of over 12,000 human workers from installations across the galaxy. These disappearances were not random. They followed patterns that suggest coordinated extraction. The data she presented painted a disturbing picture. Human workers with specialized technical knowledge had been systematically removed from positions throughout Council space. Engineers, technicians, researchers, and communications specialists had vanished without explanation, often during routine personnel transfers or supply runs. The pattern suggests a recall operation, Ambassador Yethka continued. Someone with significant organizational capabilities has been gathering human personnel with specific skill sets. The timing correlates with increased activity in the Sol system, which our long-range sensors have detected but not investigated. Doctor. Selex's form shimmered with agitation patterns. Are you suggesting that humans have been conducting espionage operations under our notice for decades? That is exactly what I am suggesting, Ambassador Yethka replied. The humans we employed as workers were actually intelligence agents, gathering information about our technology and capabilities. They have been planning this rebellion for generations. The assembly hall fell into stunned silence as delegates processed this revelation. The implications were staggering. Every human worker, every technician, every research assistant could have been part of a vast intelligence network. The species that the galaxy had dismissed as harmless laborers had been systematically studying their employers' secrets. Chancellor Veltar called for a recess to allow delegations to consult with their home governments. As the assembly dispersed into smaller groups, the conversation centered on a single question. How had the galaxy's most powerful civilizations been outmaneuvered by a species they considered primitive? The Valorian delegation huddled together, their skin patterns displaying the rapid color changes that indicated intense discussion. The revelation that humans had somehow improved upon Valorian shielding technology was particularly disturbing to a species that prided itself on technological superiority. The Gornish representatives were equally concerned about the apparent theft and modification of their particle beam weapons. Ambassador Krexnal was already composing messages to his government, requesting an immediate security review of all human personnel in Gornish facilities. But it was the Takari delegation that was most shaken by these revelations. As the species most known for their engineering capabilities, they had employed more human technicians than any other council member. The possibility that those technicians had been systematically studying and copying Takari technology was almost beyond comprehension. When the assembly reconvened, the mood had shifted dramatically. The initial dismissal of the human threat had been replaced by growing concern about the scope and sophistication of humanity's operations. Chancellor Veltar addressed the assembly with the gravity that the situation demanded. Members of the council, we face an unprecedented situation. A species that we have considered subordinate has demonstrated capabilities that suggest decades of planning and preparation. We must respond to this challenge while maintaining the stability of the galactic order. Several options were debated in the following hours. Military action remained popular among the more aggressive species, but the logistics were daunting. Earth was located far from the main council territories, and mounting an expedition would require significant resources and coordination. Economic sanctions were proposed but faced practical limitations. Humanity had declared independence from the council system, and they had apparently been preparing for economic separation as part of their long-term planning. Diplomatic engagement was suggested by some of the more moderate species, but the symbolism was troubling. Negotiating with humanity would essentially acknowledge their equal status, undermining the hierarchical structure that had maintained galactic stability for centuries. As the debate continued, new reports arrived that complicated the situation further. Long-range reconnaissance missions to human space had detected multiple energy signatures consistent with large-scale construction projects. The Sol system, previously considered a backwater region, was showing signs of significant industrial activity. Most disturbing of all was the intelligence that human colonies throughout the galaxy had begun organizing their own defensive forces. Colonies that had previously relied on Council protection were now constructing orbital platforms and requesting the withdrawal of Council oversight personnel. Admiral Kefran presented the military assessment that would shape the Council's response. Members of the Council, we are not dealing with a simple rebellion. The evidence suggests that humanity has been preparing for independence for decades. They have the industrial capacity, the technological knowledge, and the military capability to maintain their independence if they choose to do so. He paused before delivering the most challenging assessment of all. More significantly, they have demonstrated that our security measures are inadequate against a patient, intelligent adversary. If humanity could conduct intelligence operations of this scale under our notice, we must assume that other species could do the same. The implications extended far beyond the immediate human situation. The revelation that the galaxy's servant species had outmaneuvered their masters called into question the fundamental assumptions about Council superiority and security. As the emergency session concluded, it was clear that the galaxy had changed irrevocably. The age of unchallenged Council dominance was ending, and a new era of competitive politics was beginning. Humanity had not just declared independence. They had demonstrated that intelligence, patience, and determination could overcome technological superiority and numerical advantage. The question that remained was how the galaxy would adapt to this new reality. Some species would choose confrontation, others would seek accommodation, and still others would begin their own preparations for the uncertain future that lay ahead. But one thing was certain. The species that had cleaned the galaxy's ships and maintained its equipment had taught everyone a lesson about the danger of underestimating an opponent. The age of human servitude was over, and the galaxy would never be the same. 6 months after the Battle of the Outer Rim, as historians would later call it, Admiral Elena Vasquez stood on the observation deck of Terra's Vengeance as it held position at the edge of the Sol system. The view before her would have been impossible to imagine just a year earlier. A fleet of 12 human star destroyers arranged in formation, each one incorporating lessons learned from their first engagement with Council forces. The galaxy had changed dramatically since that first battle. What had begun as a demonstration of human capability had evolved into a complete restructuring of galactic politics. 3 Council species had declared neutrality in any conflict involving humanity, while 2 others had actually begun negotiations for mutual defense agreements. The monolithic authority that the Galactic Council had maintained for centuries was fracturing. Admiral, reported Captain Sarah Chen, who had been promoted to command the newest star destroyer in the fleet, we're receiving a priority transmission from Earth Command. The Council delegation has arrived at the edge of our sensor range. Elena nodded. This meeting had been 6 months in the making, the result of careful diplomatic maneuvering by both sides. The Council had initially demanded unconditional surrender and a return to the previous status quo. Humanity had countered by revealing additional capabilities that made such demands impossible to enforce. The turning point had come when human fleets had appeared simultaneously at 6 different Council worlds, not to attack, but to demonstrate their reach and capability. Each fleet had withdrawn after broadcasting the same message. Humanity was willing to coexist peacefully with the galactic community, but only as an equal partner. Tell Earth Command we're ready to escort the delegation to the meeting site. Elena ordered. And remind our fleet commanders that this is a diplomatic mission. No aggressive maneuvers, no weapon locks, and no unnecessary displays of force. The meeting location had been carefully chosen, a neutral space station that had been constructed specifically for these negotiations. Located halfway between Earth and the nearest Council world, the station incorporated both human and alien technology as a symbol of the cooperation that both sides hoped to achieve. As Terra's vengeance moved toward the rendezvous point, Eleanor reflected on the changes that had transformed not just humanity, but the entire galaxy. The revelation that humans had been conducting intelligence operations for decades had triggered security reviews throughout Council space. The discovery that other species had also been underestimated had led to a fundamental re-evaluation of galactic politics. The Zephyrians, a species that had been considered too peaceful to pose any threat, had revealed defensive technologies that made their worlds nearly impregnable. The nomadic wanderers, dismissed as primitive because of their lifestyle, had demonstrated the ability to disappear entire fleets using stealth technology that nobody understood. Most significantly, the rigid hierarchy that had defined galactic civilization was crumbling. Species that had been relegated to subordinate roles were demanding equal representation, while former dominant powers found themselves having to negotiate rather than dictate terms. "Admiral, the Council delegation is requesting permission to dock," reported the communications officer. "Granted. Inform Ambassador Torres that she has the can for diplomatic operations." Ambassador Maria Torres had been one of the human agents who had spent years working within Council diplomatic circles. Her understanding of alien psychology and political maneuvering had been crucial in preventing the situation from escalating into a full-scale war. The docking process proceeded smoothly, with both sides demonstrating the professionalism that had characterized their interactions since the initial confrontation. The Council delegation consisted of representatives from 12 species, including Chancellor Veltar herself, indicating the importance that the galactic government placed on these negotiations. Eleanor made her way to the conference room where the historic meeting would take place. The room had been designed to accommodate the various environmental and cultural needs of all participating species, with adaptive seating, multiple atmosphere zones, and communication systems that could handle dozens of different languages and sensory modalities. Chancellor Veltar was the first to speak when the session began. "Admiral Vasquez, Ambassador Torres, we gather today to address a situation that has challenged the foundations of galactic civilization. The Galactic Council acknowledges that our previous understanding of human capabilities was incomplete. It was as close to an admission of error as anyone expected from a Valorian diplomat." Elena appreciated the gesture while recognizing that much work remained to be done. "Chancellor, humanity appreciates the Council's willingness to engage in dialogue," Elena replied. "We have never sought to overthrow the galactic order, only to claim our rightful place within it. The intelligence operations we conducted were defensive in nature, designed to ensure our survival in a galaxy where we were consistently underestimated." Ambassador Jactel of the Takari delegation activated his speaking platform. "Admiral, the technology your species has developed incorporates classified systems from multiple Council species. The methods by which you acquired this technology constitute acts of espionage that cannot be ignored." Ambassador Torres responded with the diplomatic skill that had made her invaluable to the human negotiating team. "Minister Jactel, the information our people gathered was available to them through their legitimate employment with various species. If Council security protocols were insufficient to protect sensitive information from maintenance workers and technicians, that represents a failure of your systems, not criminal activity on our part." The point was well taken. The galaxy species had become so accustomed to thinking of humans as harmless that they had allowed them unprecedented access to sensitive facilities. The intelligence gathering had been opportunistic rather than criminal, taking advantage of assumptions and prejudices rather than violating established laws. Dr. Selex of the Ethereal Collective contributed her perspective with the analytical approach typical of her species. "The situation requires acknowledgement that our previous assessment models were fundamentally flawed. Humanity demonstrated capabilities in planning, organization, and technological integration that exceeded our projections by several orders of magnitude. The question now," added Admiral Kepran, "is how we move forward. The Council cannot simply ignore what has occurred, but military action against a species with humanity's demonstrated capabilities would be costly and potentially disastrous for all involved." Elena had prepared for this moment throughout the months of preliminary negotiations. "The solution, Admiral, is to recognize that the galaxy has evolved beyond the hierarchical model that has governed it for centuries. Humanity proposes a new framework, a confederation of equal species working together for mutual benefit, rather than a council of dominant powers ruling over subordinate ones. The suggestion sent ripples through the delegation. Some species had privately expressed interest in such a model, while others viewed it as a threat to their established positions of authority. Chancellor Veltar requested a recess to allow the delegations to discuss the proposal. The next several hours were filled with intense negotiations as species considered the implications of Elena's suggestion. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source. Ambassador Yethka of the Narration Syndicate, whose information networks had been crucial in understanding the scope of human operations, presented a compelling argument for change. Fellow representatives, we face a choice between evolution and stagnation. Humanity has demonstrated that intelligence and determination can overcome technological advantage. If we continue to operate under the assumption that some species are inherently superior to others, we leave ourselves vulnerable to future challenges that we may not anticipate. Her words carried special weight because the Meridian Syndicate had built their influence on their ability to gather and analyze information. If they were willing to support a more egalitarian system, it suggested that such a system was in their best interests. When negotiations resumed, the tone had shifted noticeably. Instead of trying to force humanity back into a subordinate position, the Council began discussing ways to incorporate human innovations and perspectives into the existing galactic framework. The final agreement, signed after 3 days of intensive negotiations, established a new model for galactic governance. The Galactic Council would be restructured as the Galactic Confederation, with membership open to any species that could demonstrate the capability and willingness to contribute to galactic stability and prosperity. Humanity would be granted full membership with all the rights and responsibilities that entailed. In exchange, they would share their technological innovations and contribute to the collective defense of Confederation space. Perhaps most importantly, the agreement included provisions for the systematic review of the status of other species that had been relegated to subordinate positions. The galaxy was acknowledging that its previous hierarchical system had been not just unfair, but inefficient. As the signing ceremony concluded, Elena felt a mixture of satisfaction and anticipation. The immediate goals had been achieved. Humanity had secured recognition as an equal power and established a framework for peaceful coexistence with their galactic neighbors. But the larger work was just beginning. The galaxy was entering a new era of competitive cooperation, where species would succeed based on their contributions and capabilities rather than their historical position in an established hierarchy. 6 months later, Elena stood once again on the observation deck of Terra's Vengeance, but this time the view was different. The human fleet was no longer alone in soul space. Ships from a dozen different species moved through the system, participating in joint exercises and collaborative projects that would have been unimaginable under the old order. The transformation had not been without challenges. Some species had struggled to adapt to the new reality, while others had embraced the opportunities it provided. There had been conflicts and disagreements, but they were being resolved through negotiation rather than force. The success of the Confederation model was already inspiring similar changes in other regions of the galaxy. Species that had never considered themselves capable of independence were beginning to organize their own alliances and partnerships. Elena received a communication from Earth informing her that construction had begun on humanity's first diplomatic station. Designed to serve as a meeting point for species throughout this region of the galaxy, the station would be built using collaborative technology from multiple species, symbolizing the new era of cooperation. As she watched ships from former enemies working alongside human vessels, Elena reflected on the journey that had brought them to this point. It had begun with patient intelligence gathering by individuals, willing to spend years in seemingly subordinate positions. It had continued with careful planning and preparation that spanned generations. And it had culminated in the courage to reveal themselves and demand equality rather than accepting perpetual servitude. The galaxy had learned that no species should be underestimated, that intelligence and determination could overcome any advantage, and that cooperation produced better results than domination. These were lessons that would shape galactic civilization for generations to come. Terra's Vengeance had been humanity's first Star Destroyer, but it had become something more important. A symbol of the change that was possible when species were willing to look beyond their prejudices and work together for a better future. The age of human servitude was over. The age of galactic cooperation had begun, and at the center of it all was the recognition that every species, no matter how humble their origins, possessed the potential to reshape the galaxy if they had the courage to try. Elena smiled as she watched the ships moving through soul space, carrying representatives from dozens of worlds who had come to learn from humanity's example. The species that had once cleaned the galaxy's ships was now helping to build its future. The transformation was complete. Humanity had taken its place among the stars not as servants, but as partners in the greatest adventure the galaxy had ever known.